interview Guardiola after a Champions League game was Shakhtar and City. Right. And I went to this game. And after the game, I had to interview. It's one-to-one, so it's just me and him.
Awesome.
And for the TV, I mean, he speaks fluent Italian. And for me today, it's better to do an interview in Italian than Spanish, because Italian, I speak it every day. In Spanish, I had to, you have to change some.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today I'm here with Clara. And Clara, how's everything going? And thanks for taking the time.
You're welcome. Thank you for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here. Everything's good. Everything's great.
I'm glad to hear it. And of course, we're happy to have you here. It's going to be really cool, just diving into your background. A lot of the cool stuff that you're working on. I mean, like, obviously now as well with Champions League, happening, it's a lot of stuff that you're involved in. But first and foremost, how's life treating you in Italy these days?
Well, very nice. I love Italy. Well, I lived in Brazil for most of my life. Right. And I've been here in Italy, especially in Turin, for 5 years now.
Nice.
And I really love everything. I mean, I love the football here. I love the food here, and the culture and everything. I'm absolutely in love with Italy.
That's awesome. I mean, like, I think you put down like two of the key things here, like football and food. The two big F's, or what are we gonna call it? Maybe that's not the right way to say it, but at least like football and food. I mean, like, I can totally vouch for that. Like, if there's one thing you should focus on moving somewhere, is it good football and is it good food?
Yeah, it is. It's a good combination.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, like, we're not here to talk about food that much. A little bit of football, of course, but first and foremost, like, I just wanted to go a little bit back to like how your journey in the sport industry began. Like, take us a little bit through that, and of course, where did your passion also for sport journalism start? Like, just take us to the beginning of this.
Okay, so before I even thought about being a sports journalist, I already loved football. Right. And it was my mom that was like the craze for football at my home. I mean, my father and I have an older brother. They also love football, but my mom is the person that gave me the passion. Yeah. So it was a special connection with her. We still have it, of course, and it was the beginning of my passion. But it's funny because when I entered the university, I entered to do journalism. I didn't think about becoming a sports journalist. Maybe, and we were talking about 15 years ago. Yeah. I think I didn't have a woman in TV talking about football. It was not that common. I mean, still today we have, sexist. It's a industry complicated for that. Yeah. So it was not something that I thought. It was my goal. It was my plan and everything. So I went to university, and when I graduated, I didn't work with football. I didn't work with journalism, at least. I mean, I wasn't really sure about what I was going to do. Yeah. But my final project in the university was about football. Nice. And because of that project, I think we're going to talk about it later because it's my first book. And because of it, I got an invite to write in a newspaper in my city. And we're talking about Salvador in Bahia, Brazil, of course. Yeah. And then I started writing there about football. They wanted a woman to talk about football, like anyone else, but they wanted to have more women reading and talking about football. So they invited me. Right. And from that, I started doing everything. I mean, I went from the newspaper to the TV, first doing like small participations and everything. And when I saw it, I was like the principal football analyst in my city. And then I went, I was growing. And then 5 years, I'm here in Italy.
That's awesome. I mean, like, it's quite the journey, though, and I'm sure, a challenging one as well. It's always, sport is always a very passionate and hard to break in, in general as well. But it's like, just having the opportunity, taking the opportunity and just making the most out of it, right? And then you're showing like all the way how far you can go if you put your mind to it. And it's interesting as well, like how you mentioned that I guess you're in a sense the passion started from your mother as well, and I guess like that's a little bit untraditional as well. I mean, like nothing wrong with that, of course, but a bit untraditional. And I guess like um, I guess like we're in a sense, obviously, you study journalism, and I wanted to just touch a little bit upon that before we went over to like what you're doing now. But where did kind of like I guess that approach, and you're like, yeah, I want to be inside the the journalism world, like that bubble, like where did that kind of come from?
Well, I think it came from my background as a dancer, because my dream was to being a classical dancer.
Right.
And I always like the stage and, to be in front of the public and everything.
Yeah.
And my first thing about being a journalist was being a TV host, because I love the everything about television.
Right.
And I always thought about being a world reporter, because I love languages, I love different cultures. I mean, travel besides football is my passion. So I thought that maybe I could do something like that.
Yeah.
And somehow I managed to do
there you go.
both of them.
Yeah.
But the beginning was more like this, about like to mix journalism and travel and cultures. That's what I thought I was going to be doing. And I think that's it. I always like the stage. And I love being live. I mean, it's like being in the stage like a dancer. It's live,
right?
And anything can happen, and you can't go back. So I just love the thrill of being live.
No, it makes total sense. I mean, like, hey, you're lucky enough to combine football, live, and journalism, and then like traveling and all that crazy stuff in one little bubble. So that's awesome. Was it more than you were expecting, or did you always kind of like knew that this is what I'm gonna do?
No, this is way more than I expected. I mean, I'm 38 years old now, so it's not like when I was 25, 28, I had everything figured out, and I knew everything, what I wanted to do, what were the steps. So when this opportunity came, it was like finally. So I was dreaming about it, but it was not planned. It was not something that I said, okay, I want to be correspondent outside Brazil. I want to live, in another country. Because I have done like small things. I mean, as I said, I love languages. So part of my university, I did it in Spain, because I wanted to, to improve my Spanish. I lived in the United States when I was little, so I could, speak English. And I also went to France, because I mean, I love languages. I mean, it's my hobby.
Clearly.
People, I don't know, go jogging, I go to a language course. I love it. So I always did something small about it, but I never thought about living abroad for the rest of my life. So it was not planned, and it's much more than I thought it could happen.
Right. And I think you touched upon something important as well, in terms of just, that like age stage of like, 25, 28, kind of like that. Understanding that you don't have all the answer, and it's you don't know exactly where it's gonna go, but if you keep working hard, like that opportunity is gonna show up eventually as well. And I think a lot of people maybe expect to kind of like have all the answers very, very early, and that's why I kind of like had to mention that again, because in most cases, like, you don't have that, even if you're 25, 28, maybe even 30, and so you kind of like, I think it's important to be patient, of course, like, working towards your goals and putting down the effort, but understanding that, you know, it's it's okay not having all the answers, you know, at that stage.
No doubt about it. Because when we are 18, we have no patience, and we think that when we are gonna, when I'm 25, I'm gonna have everything figured out. I mean, maybe I'm not gonna be where it's supposed to be, but I'm gonna have everything planned.
Yeah.
And that's not what happened. And I think what you can do is being prepared for the opportunity. Because in my case, for example, when they needed someone in Italy, I already spoke Italian because I loved Italian, and I love the languages, and I thought that, you know, I love cultures, I love travel. Maybe if the opportunity come, I speak the language. So when the opportunity came, and they thought, okay, we need a journalist. I already worked in the place that I'm working now. And I said, okay, now look, I already speak Italian, so why don't choose me? And they said, okay, perfect. And then
save us time.
So you have to be prepared, even though you don't know when it's coming, the opportunity is going to happen, if the opportunities come is going to happen, but you have to be prepared.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, at the end of the day, preparation is key, you know. And I mean, like, since you're so into languages, like, what is the next language you're planning to learn? Can I just bring in like a little, like, you know, suggestion of Norwegian just for fun of it?
Yeah, of course.
just represent our Nordic countries.
You know, the thing, I tried to learn Russian before the World Cup. And I studied for 5 years. So, I mean, I can understand, but I cannot like have a long conversation because it's very hard, but I can understand a little bit. But I'm thinking about learning Germany because I live in Italy, and when I go to Spain, I can speak their language. When I go to France, I can speak the languages that are near me, except Germany. So I'm thinking about it.
Makes sense. I mean, like, it's a very common language too, and a lot of people, you know, speak. And if you're gonna, you know, live/study/ you know, visit Germany, like, they kind of like are very, they like to speak their language, you know. So it's definitely like a language we're learning in that sense. So let's move a little bit forward here before we get too carried away with languages. So obviously, you know, I mean, like, for those that, you know, are listening here, and maybe, you know, you're just listening to all this inside story, and you're like, but what is Clara exactly doing? Well, you are the correspondent for Turner Sports Brazil in Italy, obviously, and I wanted you to take us a little bit through, like, I guess, some of your tasks and responsibilities that you have in that role.
Okay, so we have the rights for the Champions League, and also for some European competitions, like, for example, the playoffs for the World Cup. I'm going to Palermo for the Italy game, and I hope when everyone is listening to this, Italy is in the next World Cup. So my main responsibility is cover the clubs that are in the Champions League. Of course, I go to the games, in the most important games in Serie A, but our goal is to cover the clubs that are in the Champions League. So when I came here, we made a decision that I would be based in Turin because of Juventus. At the time, Juventus was, you know, dominating Italy. It was also very good at the Champions League. I went to the finals with them, so it was the place to be. Now it's not that much, but it's still it's a very easy city to go to Milan, where we have Internazionale in Milan. And of course, I was here during the time that Cristiano Ronaldo was here. So it was very important to cover the day by day, because that's a player that you need to be covering every day. So right now I cover those clubs. We don't have like 24-hour channel, but we have programs in YouTube. We have like scheduled lives in TikTok, in Instagram, in YouTube. So I have like a schedule during the week. If there's a game, maybe I'm gonna do, you know, a live before, a live after.
Right.
And if it's a Champions League, then it's a whole other story, because it's like a very, very big cover. But day by day, that's my goal, to cover the Italian clubs and the Italian national team,
right,
during the competitions.
that makes total sense. And I guess, like, in a sense, it made sense for you to be based, you know, close to Juventus, you know, at the time, at least. I mean, like, you know, obviously they're starting a little bit more now, but it's still a good spot to be. And obviously, you know, at the time now, and I guess, like, when we're recording this, you're working, you know, in, like, I guess, the Champions League bubble. And I guess, like, you know, from your angle, I mean, like, I'm just curious, because I don't really know, you know, being like, I haven't really been, like, in that bubble, in that world. But how does this, I guess, the Champions League, you know, tournament setting, you know, impact your work compared to, like, an ordinary game? Like, are there any key differences, and if so, like, what are they?
Well, for me, it changes everything, because if we have the rights for the game, we can do almost everything. I mean, before the game, inside the stadium, we can do, like, almost everything.
Yeah.
For example, if I go for a Juventus game in the Serie A, I cannot film anything inside the stadium. So I will arrive maybe 2 hours, 1 hour and a half before the game.
Right.
I will do, like, a live outside the stadium, some stories, you know, things like digital content.
Yeah.
I watch the game from the stands, and then come out and then do another live, maybe record something. Right. And then, I don't know, maybe 1 hour, 2 hours after the game, I'm home.
Right.
In a Champions League game, the game starts at 9 p.m. I arrived at the stadium around 2 p.m.
Jeez. All right.
And I leave around 2 a.m. I mean, it's 12 hours inside the stadium. Because we have lives, a lot of lives before. I mean, digital content today is as important as the live in the TV. So we have, like, lives in Instagram, lives in TikTok, lives in Facebook. I mean, all of the social media, we have, like, a live on them. Yeah. And not to mention the day before, because the day before we had the conferences. So I'm also on the stadium, like, almost the whole day during the conference. Sometimes we have, like, 1-to-1 with the player, with the coach. So the preparation, it's completely different. And I mean, also it's a lot more challenging, and it's a lot more fulfilling, because during the game, for example, I'm behind the goal, doing the report, being the reporter, the pitch reporter. And I mean, and you get to ask the players and the coach after the game what happened. I mean, why are you losing in Champions League? And if we're talking about
why are you losing? Why are you losing?
So it's very different.
I'm glad I'm sitting at this side of the table today, you know, so I don't have to get bored repeating, you know.
Wow, sometimes it's difficult.
I can imagine. I mean, like, so it's always interesting that kind of, like, media bubble, right? And I think, like, the higher level you are at, like, the more intense and the more, you know, critical those questions are becoming. But and I think that's, like, I guess a great transition into, you know, obviously, you know, I've been doing this, you know, for many years now in Italy, like in Brazil as well, and you know, I want you to, like, bring out, like, at least, like, you know, 1 or maybe 2, you know, like, key highlights or stories you've been able to, you know, share, like, you know, like an interview with a player or, like, a coach, or something that, like, you really remember that is like, okay, this is a good story that I want to share. We need those.
Okay.
At least what you can share, of course. But
I'm thinking of something that is more, maybe, like, not my story, but well, let me talk about this, and then maybe something will come up. Because in Brazil, I was not a reporter. I was an analyst. I mean, I made during the game, I wasn't in pitch side and everything. I was always on the. I mean, during the game, I was, you know, commenting and everything. So I was an analyst. So when I came here, I not only changed the country, the language and everything,
Sure.
but I changed my position, my role. So it was the first time I was in fact a reporter.
Yeah.
And I arrived in January 2017. And on May, I was on the final of the Champions League because Juventus
Crazy.
was there to the final, and they lost to Real Madrid.
Right.
And at that time, during this process of coming to the final, it was the first times that I did the interview, because I was never the reporter to ask the questions.
Sure.
So sometimes was the first time that I was doing an interview.
Yeah.
And I remember I don't remember, it was the quarterfinals or maybe the semifinals.
Yeah.
But it was the first time that I was going to interview Buffon, Gianluigi Buffon.
Yeah,
and I mean, he is my absolutely idol. I love Italy and Juventus because of him.
Right.
And then I remember that I was going to interview him after Juventus had a win and everything in Italy, and I wasn't that fluent in the language.
Right.
And I was so nervous that with one hand I hold the mic.
Yeah.
And because I was like shaking a lot, the cable of the mic, it was like ta 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 in the floor, because I mean, I had to, with my other hand, hold the cable so we wouldn't make the noise of me shaking, because the cable was, shaking in the floor. So I mean, I was like, oh my God. And it was the first time that I interviewed him. This is the funny story. I just remember another one.
Yeah.
And it has also something with the language. Right. Because, for example, right now I'm speaking to you in English. After this, I have an interview in Italian. And then I'm speaking, of course, Portuguese, because I work here alone, and my work is to Brazil. So I'm always speaking Portuguese. And sometimes I have to do an interview in Spanish, in French. Right. And the first time, always the first time that I interviewed Guardiola after a Champions League game was Shakhtar and City. Right. And I went to this game, and after the game, I had to interview. It's 1-to-1, so it's just me and him.
Awesome.
And for the TV, I mean, he speaks fluent Italian, and for me today, it's better to do an interview in Italian than Spanish, because Italian, I speak it every day. In Spanish, I had to, you have to change something in your mind. So, but for the TV, for Brazil, it's more easy for the audience to get the interview in Spanish, because it's closer and they understand it better. Even if we do the subtitles, it's easier to listen.
Yeah.
So I had to do it in Spanish.
Right.
So I started the interview in Spanish with him, but I forgot a word. And then, of course, the Italian word came.
Yeah.
And when I spoke the first Italian word, everything went downhill. And then I started speaking Italian. And then I got like, oh my God, what am I talking about? And then I stopped the interview. I'm thankful I wasn't live. It was recorded.
Right.
And then I stopped the interview and said to Pep Guardiola, Pepe, I'm sorry. I had to redo again because I mixed the words in Spanish and Italian. Right. And then he did like a tap on my back and said, oh, we can do in Italian, honey, no problem. And then I had to explain to him that we need to do it in Spanish because it was better for the audience. And he was like, oh, no, don't worry, honey, we can do it again. I mean, he was like, I was like almost, oh my God. I had to, breathe so I wouldn't, do the things wrong. And then I started again in Spanish, and it was very nice. But I mean, it was very nice of him to, calm me.
100%. 100%. I mean, like,
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy though. Like, if you just think about it, like you're bringing two stars here, like Buffon and Pep Guardiola. I mean, like, I didn't think anyone would be nervous at that point. You know, it doesn't matter what kind of. I'm like, I wouldn't even speak English at that point. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
the first times are hard. I mean, my first year here, as I changed everything in my life, you know, my country, my role, the people that were around me. It was a hard year. It was, I mean, also magical because, I mean, I love going to the games. It's something that, you know, I would do it for free and they are paying me.
Yeah.
But to change that and to be used to talk to Pep Guardiola, to talk to Buffon in a Champions League final, interview, you know, the coach, you had to be, I mean, of course you had to have that, you know, cold in your stomach. I mean, you had to be a little bit nervous, but it cannot impact your work.
No. I mean, like,
but in the beginning, it's hard.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine it. I mean, like, it's you know, obviously not relevant. I mean, like, it is relevant, but it's not at your crazy level. But I was bringing like this story when I started working for like the Norwegian Football Association. I mean, like, in Norway, it's small stuff, but a lot of the people that were working there was like previous, you know, like international players, you know, played, you know, for the national team. Like, you've see them on TV since I was like a kid, you know, and so going in the hallways and like just feeling like you felt like so starstruck, you know, and I was like, oh, that's that person, that's that person, that's that person. I was like, why is everybody going around normal? You know, like, this is crazy, you know? And so obviously it took me a few weeks, and then like I was like there every day, and I was like, okay, at the end of the day, they're all normal people, you know?
Yeah.
And still gonna like, you know, work with them and all this stuff. But I remember like kind of that feeling in a sense of just like getting that, I guess, like starstruck, and I was like, oh my God, it's all the people you see on TV, and now you're here. So it's I mean, like, totally different, of course. Like, you know, before the Pep Guardiola, it's crazy level, and it would get pretty much everyone nervous, I think, at any point. But I think you're bringing up a really good point too, of like, of course, you know, it's okay being nervous. I mean, like, it's natural, like, it's part of it. But at the end of the day, like, you can't let it, you know, impact your work, you know, because I mean, like, it's also about, you know, their time, you know, also, like, you're representing not just yourself, you know, at that point. So it's making sure that, you know, delivery is good. But at the end of the day, you know, you got to practice, you know, every day. You do a little bit. I mean, like, I'm sure the next time you talk with Buffon and Pep Guardiola, you had something to, you know, you use again.
yeah, of course. Yeah, the next time it's always better. And for example, I did Pep twice, and then on the second time it was really close, and then he kind of remembered me because of that thing that happened. So he was, I don't know, he didn't say anything different, but I mean, I think he was, oh, okay, know her. She's the girl that talked to me in Spanish and Italian. So you kind of, you know, you have a history with them.
Exactly.
So it helps you sometimes.
And that's what I was like, you know, coming up with here too. It's like, yes, you have like these moments, but it might also be the way of just like, you know, building a very strong relationship to these athletes and coaches, which is obviously in your situation, it's always a good thing, you know, at the end of the day.
It is.
So
it is.
That's what it comes down to. And I wanted to move on a little bit for on obviously, you know, because you've been, you know, author of multiple books, and I want to like, you know, talk upon, I guess, like, I do think the title is correct. I kind of like had to Google Translate. So in terms of like everything women need to know about football that men never knew how to explain.
Yes.
I do believe that's the English translation, proper one. I wanted to talk a little bit about that book, and I guess like you can talk about some multiple books that you've been written, but in terms of that, you know, specifically, one, how did you kind of like approach this topic, and two, what were some of the, you know, key focus areas in the book?
Okay, so this book is the one that I mentioned, that it was my final project in the university.
Makes sense.
And the idea, and we are talking about more than 15 years ago,
Yeah.
The idea came up because, I mean, since I love football and also my mother, we used to collect, I mean, we still do it, football books. Mm-hmm. And then we noticed that there was no books written by a woman or for women, because when you live, especially in Brazil, when you live in a country that lives football that passionate, you just assume that men know about football, and if a woman wants to start to see a game, start to, to understand more, she couldn't find a place to do that, because the books were for people that already knew about football.
Right.
And at that time, if you think about the girls that were my age, I wrote it when I was 22, 23, they didn't have like a place to learn about football, because they had already a whole life without going to stadiums, without being exposed to football as their brothers, as the father and everything. Today, thankfully, it's different. But at that time, I thought that was, okay, maybe this can help. I mean, surely it will help my friends, my girlfriends that don't know about football, that want to know about football, but they don't have, who to turn to. And sometimes when you ask like a very small question to a man that lives football every day, he's going to think that it's stupid. But I mean, it's not. She has not been exposed to football as you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So, and most of men didn't have the patience to do that. Yeah. So that's why the idea came up. And then I wrote the book for the project. And then after that, a lot of people said, let's try to publish. It's really good and everything. So the book tells the story, tells the rules, who are the main players, what you should know about tactics, how are the most famous, the greatest clubs in the world, and that kind of stuff. But I think that the books, like it kind of plays around with the thing that women like pink, like to cook, like to, I don't know, clothes and everything, and kind of plays with this.
Yeah.
And today, I think, I mean, it's not like very, I would never publish a book like that today.
Right.
But 15 years ago, I think it was needed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like makes total sense. I mean, like everything changed over time, right? So it's always, interesting. And I mean, like, I think it's a valid point too, in terms of like just how things are being, explained and presented, right? And I think obviously, media and I guess sports as well has also learned that maybe we need to like, grasp it over a different kind of, audience to help everyone understand, the beautiful sport that football is, and what kind of, I guess insights and joys that it brings. Lastly, I wanted to just, I guess in a sense, just touch upon, some of the tips that you might have for students, young professionals, looking to, first of all, get a career in the sport industry, but I guess in a sense also perhaps, one day, maybe working as a sport correspondent. Doesn't have to be for Champions League, but maybe, one day. What kind of, advice, tips would you give them?
I always say something that I think it's really important, and it helped me a lot. When you want to work with sports, with football, everyone that is going to work with sports and football, that want to work with this, already know about sports and football.
Right.
I mean, if you want to be a sports correspondent, a football an analyst, you will know who are the players, the tactics, and everything.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to bring something different.
Right.
And to bring something different, you have to read, you had to watch, you had to try to learn about different things than football, than sports.
Right.
So I don't know if you like maybe the politic thing, the language thing, the culture thing.
Right.
Try something that you also like, but bring that thing and learn about other things to the football, to the sports.
Yeah.
Because everyone that loves football knows about football.
Right.
You had to know something else.
Yeah.
Because that the team is playing 4-4-2, that Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi have those numbers. Yeah. Everyone knows that.
Right.
You have to bring something different.
Right.
So that's the thing that I say. Don't just watch sports.
Right.
Watch other things. Read about other things. Don't read only football books, sports books.
Yeah.
Read about the other stuff. So you will have the knowledge and the variety to speak more than just football, more than just sports.
Right.
So that's my main advice for everyone that wants to work with this.
I think it makes a lot of sense. And I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, it's very easy to look up stats and facts, in football. And I mean, like, if you're passionate about football, you know who's the best players, who's the best teams, what kind of, you're watching their games anyway. So I mean, like, a lot of them is like, it's stuff that so it's a really good point. Like, what is your differentiator? What is stuff that you can bring to the table that makes you unique? Or, like, I guess in a sense, in a correspondent world, it's almost like, what is your signature stamp, or like whatever you want to call it? What can you bring that is like, okay, this represents you, like how you are presenting your information. Maybe there's a little fun fact about like the team, or like, I don't know, like, so something that people don't really know, and I think bringing those kind of knowledge is what makes you different and unique. So that's a really great advice. And I think that's a perfect way, to wrap up the podcast. Clara, I would like to thank you, so much, for taking the time and for sharing your insights with all of us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much again. It was very nice to talk to you, and I hope it helps everyone listening to it.
Absolutely. And it's been a pleasure. And for those of you that have been tuning in all the way since the beginning, make sure to like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe as well to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you haven't signed up at SportIn Global, it's free. It's a great community where you can build your community, sports network. You can find relevant job opportunities, and of course, find courses and programs to help you, find that knowledge, get some insights, and connect with the great people like Clara, so make sure to check that out. Lastly, I'm like, I don't know if but we have kind of like a SportIn Global podcast tradition here that we have to do. So a little bit of a challenge, and I think it kind of like will definitely be up your alley because it is language based. So
okay.
So I have to teach you a little bit Norwegian. So that's
okay.
That's how we do it here. So I mean, like, you talk about what makes what is your signature, right? What is something that makes you different? So for us, like with the podcast and like with every video we do, we always finish with a Norwegian word, which is "vi snakkes," which means "see you later" in Norwegian. So that's what you have to say.
Okay, repeat it to me.
Vi snakkes.
Vi snakkes.
There you go. Great job. All right. Thank you so much, Clara. Have a great day, and we'll talk very soon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.